So what's next for Stipe?
Well, I mean, that's kind of the $1,000,000 question here. And the announcement of Stipe not getting this fight in some ways retires Stipe, or at least potentially. If Stipe couldn't get the fight in the last year, if Stipe couldn't get the fight when they wanted to do the fight, which was December, why would Stipe get the fight in July? What would be different then? I think that's a really hard question to answer.
Well, what's Curtis Blades doing? Because like I don't know why they wouldn't put Stipe versus Curtis Blades.
Well, I hear you on that. The rumor, or at least the belief, is Stipe's going, no, listen, I'm championship. I lost. I put my championship on the line against Francis. I offered to fight Francis. I qualify for a trilogy fight with Francis, which I do agree with. So he's going, if you're going to get things worked out with Francis, I still remain in a world title fight. The belief is that is Stipe's stance. I haven't spoke to him, but I actually get that stance. That makes sense to me. So I tend to believe that is the case. In other words, Mo, he's not going to do anything unless it's a championship fight.
See, I wish like you know, it's not a big deal, but I don't really wish, but I think what would make sense, honestly, is the UFC would have had Jon Jones fight someone like Tai Tuivasa or somebody like a showcase fight to show, hey, we have a different fighter at heavyweight who can show some power. Because at 205, everyone's going off of the only highlights they can show from Jon Jones is from 4 or 5 years ago at 205.
Sure.
But if you have him fight at heavyweight, have him fight a punching bag, or a guy that's pretty tough, durable, but a punching bag that is somewhat dangerous, that could actually sell a fight. If you were to fight Tai Tuivasa or to stop Tai Tuivasa, that would have been like, I'm not saying you would have, but if the other heavyweights out there they could put Jon Jones against to showcase that, hey, we have a true legitimate heavyweight now. And he looked so good that I think, with him being a former title holder, we should let him fight at heavyweight for the belt. Two, if he did that, it'd free up, like, Stipe could have fought Cyril Gane,
sure.
Winner fights Jon Jones, because Jon Jones has proved himself as a heavyweight.
Those heavyweights just have not found a way to make themselves interesting or to separate from the pack. And at some point, they're either going to figure out how to do it, or the UFC is going to take the hell with it. We're done waiting for you guys. Sergey, you're up. This Sergey, you're up. I mean, at some point, you have to do it that way. And we've seen it before. But traditionally in the sport, they will give the boys a chance first. At some point, they're going to, hey, Aspinall, you're up. And, that's probably what it's going to take. But when that happens, that takes a 40-year-old Stipe who's been removed from the sport for 1.5 years already out of the equation. And I think it's a problem. I think he's got a real problem on his hands. Is he even going to be able to get another fight?
What was stopping the UFC from saying, you know what? Let's take it back to the old school. Let's have a tournament. Not one night tournament, of course, but a tournament that
sure.
Kind of what Bellator was doing, to where you actually fight for the belt instead of just because like 205 division, for instance, like, hey, so and so versus so and so, we didn't like the results of draw. Okay, well, let's get 2 more fighters to fight for the belt. Where I feel like maybe a tournament would be more fitting.
I would love that. I mean, that's my fantasy, to have a competitive architecture and to actually find out who the best is. That would be interesting. And you want to know another weight class, because Francis is so damn limited. That's why it's hard to close your eyes and imagine that he's the best, because he's limited. But I'll tell you another guy who's limited, who's undefeated, and who's also a world champion, is Alex Pereira, which is where a tournament would be very interesting. Like, do all of us experts going to go, this guy's too limited to be a mixed martial arts champion? Or do we learn the sport goes in waves, and it's now in a wave of one dominant discipline? Khabib proved that. One dominant discipline beats pretty good at everything else.
Yes and no. And the reason why I say I agree with you on that, but I say no a little bit because I feel like 185, when Anderson Silva stepped in the game,
sure,
they need to find somebody exciting to step up. They had Romero, but he wasn't performing, and he was a wrestler. Granted, his fights were good, but sometimes he had duds.
Sure.
But I feel like that left a vacuum, and they saw Israel Adesanya looking pretty exciting, and they're like, you know what? Let's get behind him.